Liberia, a small country located on the coast of West Africa. Founded in 1822 as a result of the American Colonization Society, who brought freed slaves from America to Africa. The coup was followed by many violent and gruesome events, and ultimately a 14-year-long civil war that led to the country's destruction. 14 years later, Liberia is in a state of recovery. The trauma and pain Liberians went through is unreal. Join us as we sit down with a few survivors living in both Liberia and America. These are their stories.
My name is Sadie DeShield, and I'm from the Republic of Liberia, born in S1E5 District, Bong County. I had a very beautiful childhood, and as I look back on it, it just seems that God had my life planned His own way, and He carried it out. I'm the only child of my mother, and at the age of 5 years, my father took me away from my mother because he wanted me to have an education, and she was not too concerned about me having one. I think her greatest concern was me leaving her. Since then, I was her only child and remained so until her death. Even though I was in a family that adopted me, they loved me, they cared about me, and they did everything to foster in me the love of learning and the love of God. The coup, I could sense the restlessness in our country, and all of a sudden, people became so hateful. I don't know where that hate came from. It was almost demonic in its ferocity. And people that have been peaceful, living together, not even considering and loving our country, all of a sudden we found ourselves in this great turmoil. Tribalism surfaced, and people were saying one thing or the other, and it just was unexplainable to me. But the actual time of the coup, again, it let me know that God was always present, because our home was situated just a stone's throw from the main government radio station ELBC, and just one lot away from the main highway. And the soldiers, the shooting, we became aware of the coup when the shooting, this barrage of it just was going. It started coming up to the radio station, and all night, we could not sleep. I've never been so afraid for myself and my children. My husband had gone out because the president called him and told him there was trouble and shooting at the mansion, and to get in touch with members of the security. And he had taken his car to go and look to find these people at their homes. But he left before the shooting came up our way. But he didn't find anybody at home, but he met his brother Charles, who was also a member of the security services. He was a director of police, I think, at that particular time. And his brother drove with him back in the yard. He put his service car down, which was a big car, and they got in Charles' car, and then they went out. And we were not to really have him at home for another year and some days. The night of the coup, he told us what happened to them, he and Uncle Charles. But they were being chased by a truckload of soldiers. And when he came, they passed our house because they couldn't come in the yard. I guess they didn't want to come in the yard and draw the soldiers in on us. So they passed and went past the radio station, and they had to abandon the car because the shooting was so much. If you had seen your uncle's car, it was full of bullet holes all around. I don't know why they didn't get killed. But your father said they abandoned the car. There was 3 of them because they had picked up the Justice Minister Chesson because he wanted to go with them to Shefflin, where the army barracks were, to see what was going on. And when they realized, the soldiers that were coming realized it was the Justice Minister, they opened fire on the car, and they told him he wouldn't see the light of day. But unfortunately, he was one of those that was executed. But your grandfather ran to a friend's house. He said he walked in the dark in between houses until he got to a friend's house, and he called us. And when he called us, he told me where he was. But I told him, I said, they're shooting all around here. Don't come. Don't get on the road again. I said, because you won't be able to get past EFBC, which was the radio station. By then, there were thousands of soldiers around that station because they intended to take it over. They did take it over. So he stayed where he was for some days. It wasn't safe for him to even appear because by then they had started roping in all of the government officials. And they did get him eventually. And even his capture was by God's grace because they wanted to kill him, but there was someone in the group who prevented that. So that was God. So we didn't get to see him as a free man for over a year. But we were able to visit him at the post stockade. And I would go, your Uncle Sam would go, Uncle Mac would go, but we had to make elaborate arrangements because the soldiers at the barracks wanted to help us to see our people that were in the stockade. But those that were running the government wanted the people that they had arrested killed. And the soldiers resisted that move. I saw that for myself. So I got to go to the post stockade twice. Uncle Sam used to go. And once he went and they arrested him, took off all his clothes and threw him in the stockade too. But somehow somebody God intervened and he was released. When your mom and auntie were about to come to the States, we made arrangements. And you had to bribe, you had to pay your way in to visit anybody. They would tell you you had to bring X amount of money before you would be allowed to see your relative or your family member or your friend that was in post stockade. So when your mom and Lisa were about to leave, we made an arrangement for them to visit him in the post stockade. gradually my house filled with people seeking refuge, children, including a 1-month-old baby. There were about 30 of us in that house, mostly children. And God, being faithful to his word, he protected us from all kinds of situations, all kinds of fearful people and situations. And we went through months and months of fear and torture. And all that stands out to me was that God was good to us. He protected us and he kept us safe. We went through a lot of frightening experiences from drunken, drugged soldiers who came in. They would come in any time of the day and night, threaten us all kind of way. They come to your house, they kill so many people in their own homes. They would just go and start shooting and kill people. Many people that we knew died that way. And they came to our house so many times, but God did not let them harm us. And one voice kept ringing in my ear: 1,000 shall fall at thy side, but it shall not come nigh thee. At one point I was so afraid. I knew by daybreak we will all be dead. And I was afraid of guns. Just the sound of a gun petrified me. But during that period, somehow God took away the fear, and I was able to carry on. We lived with a house full of people, keeping order, keeping children fed. All of that those were my experiences of the coup until I left Liberia to come to America. We were in Liberia when the people were killed, but where we live in Painesville, we didn't know they were killing people. But what happened when that execution was going on, there was a terrible storm over Monrovia. We saw the black clouds over Monrovia, but the sun was shining where we were. The cloud was so black, and the people in Monrovia said it was a terrible, terrible storm that they had never seen before when they killed those 13 members of the government. They were all cabinet ministers to the president. And my first time seeing those things was when I looked on YouTube. YouTube. And I saw that execution. It was so horrible, so horrible, so horrible. But God knows what happened. God knows who did it. And we're just waiting for his intervention. We were able to get out of Liberia in due time. And people think about the wars, but fortunately, we weren't there for the wars, the outbreak of the war. I went back home in 1989 just to look around and see if things were settling down. But December 1989, I left to come back to the States. But when I left that December, I didn't even know Charles Taylor had moved in with his army and had begun fighting in the interior of the country until I came back home to America and began to see all the news on CNN. But each time we call friends in Monrovia, your grandfather, he was still there. They said, nothing's happening here. Nothing's happening here. I said, but what is this we are seeing on the news? He would say, nothing's happening here. But they didn't know what was going on in the interior of the country, and the government was not informing the citizens of what was happening until the fighting really got to Monrovia. love to go back someday, but I've just left my future in God's hands. He's controlled my life up to now, and I'm just willing, knowing what He has done in the past, I'm just willing to let Him continue to have His way. So I'll be here until I pray that He will let me go home. I pray that He will allow me to die there. But if He doesn't do it that way, His way is always best. My life is in His hands. So I'll leave it there.